Hello and welcome everyone back to the channel. My name is Ryan. This is Nova Films, and today we are going to be talking about episode 3 of season 3 for House of the Dragon. Full spoilers ahead. Before we get started though, please make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. I greatly appreciate it. And let's get started with a spoiler review. So, episode 3 of season 3, we have finally come to King's Landing. Rhaenyra has officially taken the throne for herself, Queen's Landing, as the episode is titled. And this whole episode is from the point of view of Rhaenyra Targaryen, of our queen, basically. We're basically thrown almost immediately after episode 2, where she takes the throne finally. She fucking decapitates Otto Hightower. Alicent sees the rift is still growing between them. Not sure completely why. They should be boilingly hating each other at this point, but the writers still try to teeter the line with this whole Alicent and Rhaenyra pseudo psychosexual kind of tension they have with each other and all that. I don't know why they should be hating each other's guts at this point, but I digress. Going forward, I gotta say for this episode, I really enjoyed the switch up of the style for this episode. Coming off of episode 1 and episode 2 of season 3, which were essentially the penultimate and the finale of what would have been the season 2 arc with Jace dying and then Rhaenyra finally taking the throne for herself in King's Landing. That would have been such an epic conclusion. But, for it to start off the first 2 episodes so just viscerally, and the pacing is so intense, and it's just building and building and building. And then we finally get that ultimate payoff in episode 2. This episode had me a lot anticipating of okay, what's next? Are we going to keep this momentum? Or I feel like we're going to have to slow down because, at some point we might end up just going too fast into the storyline, whereas we need to slow down a little more and get more into the politicking side of it. To essentially have the entire episode told from Rhaenyra's point of view, solely from her, in this kind of bottle episode type of episode was really fascinating, and it really got us into the mindset of Rhaenyra and what her psyche is at this point and how she's handling her grief with Jace, all the hardships that comes with ruling the kingdom now, all these people coming to her in the court, begging to her, be like, oh, there's problem with the bedchambers, there's problem with the rats eating through the candles. All of that was so well done. And to add on top of that, the score by Ramin Djawadi in this episode was fucking killer. He's always done a fantastic job in Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon, but I feel like for season 3, he's even more locked the fuck in than he typically is, which is insane to me because he's done such a fantastic job in these first 2 episodes. In this episode in particular, the music and the sound design was so prominent and so just visceral, and it felt like very just the soundtrack for this episode just felt more alarming than any other soundtrack that I feel that he's done for either House of Dragon or even for Game of Thrones. All of it was just so well done. The constant ringing in Rhaenyra's ears, the kind of uncanny percussion instruments that they use to really get us in the mind space of okay, something's going on with Rhaenyra. Her psyche is clearly starting to fracture at this point, and it's only a matter of time before she starts turning into, what we see from Fire and Blood, which is Rhaenyra the Cruel. And I'm glad that they're doing that finally, because I think for way too long of a time they've just let Rhaenyra kind of meander and kind of waffle about and be very indecisive and pondering on what she should do, what she shouldn't do. And although I do enjoy that art of them trying to lead the audience more into see okay, this is why she's going to start becoming more kind of ice in her veins, colder, more cruel as it is in Fire and Blood. Do I feel like it took a little too long for this to start? Maybe. I feel like at the end of season 1, episode 10, when Lucerys finally dies by the hands of Aemond and Vhagar, and we have that wonderful shot of Emma Darcy turning towards the camera and seeing that fury and that rage and that grief in her eyes, that should have started the descent for her to become Rhaenyra the Cruel. And season 2, it just kept building and building, her going back on something, her going forward on something. Then she finally did something in season 2, episode 7, where, she sacrifices all of the dragon seeds to Vermithor just for Hugh Hammer to get his dragon. And it felt like she finally took action and initiation. But then the writers keep having Rhaenyra go back and forth and back and forth. And now, finally, it feels like they're actually making Rhaenyra make the hard decisions, make her become more of a morally gray character. Not to say they haven't made her that way, but it just feels like the writers, they keep tiptoeing around like, should we make Rhaenyra more evil? Should we make her more passive? Should we follow kind of the historical accounts of Fire and Blood about, what goes on with her? It clearly states that after Jacaerys's death, that something breaks in her, something hardens her soul to where she becomes more cruel and all of her grief is gone. All she has is rage. And I feel like Emma Darcy perfectly portrayed that in this episode, which is why I was really enjoying just the bottle episode formula to like really center on Rhaenyra. Because even though we focus so much of Rhaenyra in season 1 and season 2, we really haven't gotten like a little more insight into her psyche, kind of like how we got in season 2 with Damon and Harrenhal. People talk shit about it, but I think that was one of the best parts of season 2, and I feel like they're doing that really well for this season so far. At least for this episode, I thought it was very well done for what Emma Darcy was able to perform and convey, and just the point of view, the way that Claire Kilner, the director, and just the whole team just captured the point of view of Rhaenyra, and like her seeing the hallucination of Jacaerys when she doubts if she should kill Alicent's other son, Daeron, who we finally get to see after 3 seasons. They've been fucking hiding this guy like he's Thanos, like he's the big bad of the MCU or fucking Westeros. He's Daeron the Good. I don't know why we keep having to hide him, but I digress. And when she sees Jacaerys's ghost, basically a hallucination of him, she immediately hardens and she immediately goes to, well, why the fuck shouldn't I strike down my half brother? Just as the Team Green has struck down my sons. Why shouldn't I? And for that, I loved seeing that turn for Rhaenyra, that we're starting to see more, like I said, of Rhaenyra the Cruel, of her becoming much more, just more of an interesting character. Because although I have enjoyed Emma Darcy and they've played the hell out of this role, and Rhaenyra is fascinating, they've been teetering the line so much with her that feels like with this episode we're finally getting to that point, even though it's taken this fucking long. I'm glad that they're finally doing that, and that's why that's the biggest part that I really enjoyed about this episode. There are some things I'm a little bit about, but let's get into that now. Actually, now for me, I really enjoyed the change up for the beginning of the episode with the cold open with Prince Daemon and Ormond Hightower meeting, very much kind of like Aegon the Conqueror meeting with the other lords in the Field of Fire, if you know, from the Fire and Blood book. It kind of had a lot of those parallels, the 3 dragons meeting against like the 10,000 Armada army. And the dialogue between Ormond and Daemon was really great. Daemon being all kind of passive towards him and, laissez-faire, nonchalant. He's like, you may return to Old Town in peace and whatever you call whatever fucking peace you believe in. And and Ormond orchestrated a plan. This is not from the book, that they trade Daeron to Daemon and Team Black, but he's a fake Daeron. He's a fake out. He's not the real Daeron. He's just some servant boy that Ormond Hightower bleached his hair Targaryen blonde silver, and he basically was like, if you don't do this, I'm going to murder your mother. So don't say anything to Rhaenyra. Just pass it off like you are the young prince. And although I thought it was a cool twist at the end, the beginning, I was like, does Daemon... Obviously, Daemon doesn't know what Daeron looks like. I mean, he doesn't really give a shit about the Hightower Targaryen mixed kids. He really does not. He only cares about Rhaenyra, her kin, and his own. And Viserys, obviously, too. So it was a little alarming to be like, okay, it's a little too easy, Daemon. He's drinking a little too much of the Kool-Aid of, they finally got on top. They finally got the throne. And it feels like he should have taken maybe a little more precaution. Maybe he should have seen that, all right, well, I'm taking Daeron. Why is his dragon still here? Tessarion. Shouldn't he have taken Tessarion with him? I understand that the Dragon Keepers are there with him to like protect Tessarion, but like it feels weird that Tessarion wouldn't just automatically go with Daeron. I mean, there's a clear shot where the fake Daeron is coming up to Daemon, and Tessarion's looking at him like, who the fuck is this? I don't know who this is. This is not my rider. And I don't know, that just felt like a little bit of odd thing from Daemon to not like kind of put 2 and 2 together. I mean, because he basically is like, he's like the closest to what we would have of like the original like dragon lords of old Valyria. Just feels weird that he wouldn't pick up on the dragon things going on where it's like, why isn't Daeron's dragon wanting to come with him? Why are we just leaving him with the greens? Why is Tessarion not really reacting to me taking Daeron away from him? It seems weird. I mean, we saw last season that sea smoke with Adam Valerion when he was going towards Rhaenyra and they met on the beach. That sea smoke was right behind him, wouldn't let him out of his sight, and he was very defensive of Adam. And they met like an hour ago. Felt weird that Daemon didn't pick up on that in the beginning of the cold open of the episode. It was a cool scene though, like altogether, and the twist at the end was pretty cool. I kind of, from seeing the trailers, I kind of figured it would be a fake Daeron. Yeah, I feel like there could have been some more hesitancy or maybe just a little more thought into like maybe Daemon's a little suspicious that this is not the real Daeron, or have Daemon be like, okay, bring Tessarion with you. And there's a whole like little tense moment where it's like, this kid doesn't have a fucking bond with him, so he's just gonna have to, So yeah, that was like the one complaint I had about. Not necessarily. That was like the one kind of flaw I had about it with the writing. This episode is written by Sarah Hess, who I've come to learn that can either write extremely well done episodes with really good dialogue, or she can write some of the dumbest fucking shit ever. I mean, she's the one who gave us the season 2 episode 8 finale when Alicent sneaks onto Dragonstone to meet with Rhaenyra like it's a fucking cartoon. Like there's not an active blockade in the ocean that Rhaenyra's. Anyways, so yeah, she's kind of a very bipolar writer where she either writes something really good or she writes something that's just not very compelling or honestly even plausible in the storyline. But I digress. I mean, they portray it really well. Rhaenyra is fucking going through it this episode. I mean, if ruling wasn't stressful enough and everybody coming to her with all these requests and her trying to find her footing with everything, they do the whole thing where she gets her period, where it makes her day even worse. And we're actively seeing, like, she's seeing rats all around the Red Keep. There's so many. She's becoming more paranoid because I like the symbolism of the rats where it's like, she feels like she can't trust anyone. She's like, they're kind of starting to sow the seeds of War and Fire and Blood where Rhaenyra just starts not trusting anyone, where she becomes super paranoid, super cruel. And I feel like they did that really well in this episode to show. I will say though, for the whole storyline with her getting her period, her first day on the throne, they intentionally show her like gripping the Iron Throne like really, really hard. And in the lore, if you know, that Rhaenyra does get cut by she gets cut by the Iron Throne multiple times. And for some reason, I kind of figured that, with her getting her period on her first day in front of the court on her throne, that maybe people would see like, oh my God, there's like blood trails going down the Iron Throne. She has to be cutting herself because the throne is clearly rejecting her. The gods are against her. I mean, the fucking High Septon who we saw in the one conversation with her is clearly against her. I mean, the Faith of the Seven is based out of Old Town where the High Towers are. So they're clearly going to be against Rhaenyra and they're anti-dragons. I mean, the High Septon literally says it to her. He's like, my gods don't deal in dragons. They're a darkness created for power and lust through blood sacrifice magic. We get more dragon lore in there, and we clearly see that, I mean, this is a whole thing in Fire and Blood where, Maegor the Cruel, one of the worst Targaryen kings, he literally had a war against the faith of the Seven and was actively trying to exterminate them because, they constantly fought back against the Targaryens with their incest and their dragons. They thought the dragons were just pure evil. The Septon even says, he's like, all they do is destroy. Dragons do not create anything, which can be true and it cannot because dragons can create. I mean, they literally forged the 7 kingdoms that Aegon did with Visenya and Rhaenys. There's also tales from Essos and beyond Westeros where dragons have built cities and they've built roadways. Like, the dragons can be used for good. I mean, obviously they are chaotic creatures. They're literally fire and chaos incarnate, but they do have a purpose and they can be used, but it depends on who's actually wielding that power of the dragons. And that's what Rhaenyra has to grapple with. She is trying to have a balance between where Daemon's ideology is that let's just fucking conquer the world. Let's conquer Dorne. Let's conquer Yt, the free cities, Essos. We can even go to Ashai where they say men have wings that they fly, which is pretty cool book lore to dump.
And she's also balancing with Viserys, where Viserys was more peaceful and he wanted to have banquets and he wanted to make commerce and peace with people. I feel like they're kind of intentionally having Rhaenyra reminisce more about Viserys, even though he wasn't the greatest king and he did flounder constantly, and Otto was the one who was basically ruling the kingdom. So there's a little bit of like willful ignorance coming from Rhaenyra, and even Daemon said it too. He says, I love my brother and I made my peace with him, but he did not see greatness. He was afraid to get blood on his hands, and I don't want that for you. But Rhaenyra kind of pushes back on him, so we're kind of starting to see a little, like they're at a decent place right now, Rhaenyra and Daemon. But if you know the lore, things are things are going to get interesting, especially now that we know that Daemon is going to be going to the Vale to meet with Lady Jane Eyre and certain sheep stealer and a certain Rhaena, the daughter of Daemon Targaryen, is there. So it's going to be interesting to see what Daemon will do when he finds out that the rider of sheep stealer is his own daughter. Will he end up siding with Rhaenyra, or is he going to choose his daughter and defend her against whatever Rhaenyra will do? I mean, will there be a point where Rhaenyra has become so paranoid, so frustrated, and so cruel, where she's like, Daemon, I want you to go kill your daughter, Rhaena, for vengeance for my son. Will Daemon respect that? I don't know. We're going to have to see. So I won't say any more spoilers, but that's where I'm going to leave you off there. It was great too seeing a lot more of Corlys in court, basically, kind of like rehashing like a little bit of his energy that he had with Viserys, kind of like the frustration that he had with him. But now he's bringing forth to Rhaenyra, like, listen, I need you to legitimize my sons. I don't have an heir. House Velaryon needs continuation. I ask you simply of this. He's already given her so much already. He's given her his army. Rhaenys died for her cause. Her son Laenor had his death was faked, but for all Corlys knows, he's dead. Laena, Daemon's wife, died. Corlys has nothing, and it is funny. Like, yeah, Corlys like accepted these kids, his bastard kids, Adam and Alan, like maybe like a day or two ago, and now all of a sudden he's like, well, I want them to be my sons immediately, even though he was kind of a deadbeat for like 30 years of their life. But I was extremely frustrated with Rhaenyra's decision to be like, I'm not going to do that right now. A little hypocritical of her, since Jacaerys, Lucerys, and Joffrey, all three of her bastard children by Harwin Strong, she had no problem claiming them as her own children, as true-born children, even though they are bastard children. And I can see both sides where like, all right, Viserys, like, Rhaenyra's got a lot on her plate right now. She just needs a second. I get it. You've done a lot for her, but like, just give her a second, give her some time. And that's that. And I get it from Corlys, where it's like, he's a fucking old man. He's in his early to mid 70s. And he's like, House Velaryon is going to end at some point. I want my lineage to continue. I've done so much for you. Just let me do this. Please legitimize my children. This is the one thing I'm asking for you. But with Rhaenyra, she can't have that right now. She can't be seen to be raising bastards up as legitimate children, in this reign right now. Her reign already is starting off to a rocky point, and this already will cause even a further friction. It might even cause a further friction with the dragon seeds, with Hugh the Hammer and Ulf the White, because in the scene where they get knighted, where Daemon knights all three of them, Ulf is like, well, I'll style myself as a Targaryen for the banquet, my queen. And Rhaenyra's like, absolutely fucking not. So she has to kind of swallow that, where she's like, I can't give Adam and Alan their Velaryon title while also denouncing Hugh the Hammer and Ulf the White. So then I would have to name them Targaryens. And now her reign would start being questioned, essentially, for her. She's already the first woman ruler coming into Westeros, like solely with a king consort. And already people have a prejudice against her. She's a woman, obviously. That's the thing they've been hammering over us in the head with this show. And she can't be seen to be legitimizing bastards at the moment. But at the same time, I completely see where Corlys is coming from. And he tells her straight up. He's like, listen, your son Joffrey's a bastard. Lucerys, who I accepted as my grandson, he's a fucking bastard too. Jace, he lived and died a bastard. Why must my kids be denied what they're deserved? Which is completely understandable. And it's going to be definitely interesting to see the further dispute between Rhaenyra and Corlys and how she's going to handle possibly legitimizing Adam and Alan in the story. Because in Fire and Blood, she does legitimize them. So I'm wondering if they're going to continue to do that in the show, or if maybe they're holding it off for it to create drama where eventually she will just submit and be like, okay, I will legitimize Adam and Alan. But we're going to have to wait and see for that. All right, guys, that was my review for episode 3 of season 3 for House the Dragon. Really enjoyed this episode. Some writing things were a little odd, just questionable at best. But overall, really enjoyed the episode. For this, I am going to give it. I'm going to give it a flat 8 out of 10. That's my rating for this. And thank you guys as always for watching. Please make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to my channel. Greatly appreciate it. And I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.